So yeah, your first question on the screen. Which one of the following is a prokaryote? Five seconds left. Yeah, so three of you have marked yeast, one of you have marked amoeba. The correct answer is actually bacteria. So prokaryotes are those organisms without a nuclear membrane, no well-defined nucleus. Yeast and amoeba, they are eukaryotic organisms. So let's, so none of you have scored. Let's go to question number 2. ATP is produced by So the correct answer for this question is mitochondria. Mitochondria is a powerhouse of the cell and it produces ATP or energy. Let's see the results. That's question number 3. Which one is a leguminous plant? Two answers. The correct answer should be P. So leguminous plants are those plants which have a bacterium called rhizobium and they can do nitrogen fixation. They have structures called root nodules. Let's see the results. Kedar on the top right now. So next question, question number 4. This is true or false. Phloem conducts water and minerals from roots to leaves. True or false? Okay, 3 of you are marked true, 1 false. The correct answer is false. Phloem does not conduct water, phloem conducts food. Water is conducted by xylem. Question number 5. Which one is biodegradable? Okay, 3 correct answers. Biodegradable is wool. Wool is a biological substance, so it is biodegradable. PVC, detergent, plastics, they are non-biodegradable. Let's see the scores. Sanika on the top right now. Moving on to question number 6. Iodine is necessary for the synthesis of which of the following hormones? Okay. 3 right answers. Thyroxine or thyroid hormone is the correct answer. So that is why we are supposed to eat iodized salt. So Sanika, right now you have a streak with 3 correct answers. Question number 7. Involuntary actions are controlled by which part of the brain? You studied this last year. Okay, none of you got it right. The correct answer is medulla oblongata. So that is why if your medulla oblongata is damaged due to some accident, the person might die because all the involuntary actions are controlled by medulla. Next question. Question number 8. Blood clotting is carried out by which of the following? So this was an easy question. All of you got it right. Question number 9. Pepsin is produced by, pepsin is a digestive enzyme. Pepsin is produced by which part of the body? Five seconds. The correct answer is stomach. Pepsin is a proteolytic enzyme. Okay, Kedar, you got it right. I think last question. Okay, this is the last question. Who discovered the first antibiotic? Five seconds. Okay, no correct answers. The correct answer is Alexander Fleming. Carl Linnaeus is the father of taxonomy. Edward Jenner discovered the first vaccine, not antibiotic. So the correct answer is Alexander Fleming. He discovered penicillin. Let's see who's up on the podium. So Madhura, third place. Sanika, second place. And Kedar, you're at the first place. Okay, so Kahoot is over. Let's start the first chapter. Give me 1 minute. So we'll be starting chapter 8 today because this chapter is very important. And without studying this chapter, it's impossible to understand or study other chapters. So that is why I'll be starting this chapter first, not chapter 1. So this chapter is mainly about cells. You have already studied this in 9th standard, the fundamental unit of life. Okay, so we'll discuss what are cells. So can someone tell me what are cells? How will you define the word cell? You can unmute your mic and you can answer the question.
Basic fundamental structure of organism.
Okay, that is right. Any other definition? Kedar, Madhura, Anirudh, how will you define the term cell?
Cell is the fundamental structure and functional unit of an organism.
Okay, that is also right. So cell is the basic unit of life. All living organisms are made up of cells. And cell can be defined as the fundamental, structural, and functional unit of life. So if you take any organism, whether it is a plant, animal, bacteria, fungi, amoeba, whatever, all these living organisms, they are made up of cells. So a cell could be defined as the fundamental structural and functional units of life. All the cells, they show some properties. First property is that they're capable of independent existence. That means they can exist on its own without help from anything else. So that is the first important property of cells. They are capable of independent existence. Second point, I already mentioned, all living organisms, they are made up of cells. Either they are made up of one cell or more than one cell. So suppose if you consider bacteria, bacteria is unicellular. Unicellular are those organisms which are made up of only one cell, like bacteria, amoeba, yeast. The second category is called multicellular. Multicellular means the organism is made up of more than one cell, like human beings, most of the plants, and animals. Third point, all the cells are basically alike in chemical composition and metabolism. So what do you mean by the word metabolism? All the chemical reactions in our body is referred to as metabolism. So it could be digestion, respiration, nutrition, excretion. All these are examples of metabolic reactions. So in 10th standard, you have studied a chapter called life processes. So all these life processes that you study, they are examples of metabolic reactions. So if you take any cell, their basic composition, chemical composition will be same, and the metabolic reactions will be also almost similar. Last point is very important. All cells are related by their descent from earlier cells. That means new cells arise from pre-existing cells. So by a process called cell division or reproduction. So there will be a cell called mother cell. So this is a mother cell. This is a mother cell. This mother cell will divide into two other cells, and these are called daughter cells. So this process is called reproduction, which is of different types, asexual and sexual. Or you could call it as mitosis and meiosis, which are nuclear divisions. So new cells always come from already existing or pre-existing cells. So these are some of the important properties of cells. They can exist independently. All living organisms are composed of cells. All cells from any organism, their chemical composition and metabolism will be almost similar. And all cells arise from already existing or pre-existing cells. Now we'll discuss who discovered cells for the first time, who coined the term cell. So can someone tell me who coined the term cell?
Robert Hooke.
Right, Robert Hooke. Okay. So the term cell was coined by a scientist named Robert Hooke. You have studied this already in 9th standard. So he was using a piece of cork. Cork is a part of the bark of the tree, the outermost covering of the tree. So cork was taken from an oak tree, and he was observing this under his microscope, his own microscope, and he found that the structures somewhat resembled the honeycomb. So these were honeycomb-like structures with some box-like compartments, and he used a Latin term called cellulae to describe this. So the Latin term cellulae actually means little rooms or small compartments. So that is how Robert Hooke discovered cells for the first time. So he took a piece of cork from oak tree. He observed it under his microscope. This was his microscope. And he found that there are small honeycomb-like structures, box-like structures. So he used a Latin term cellulae, which actually means little rooms or little compartments. Now, is cork a dead cell or a living cell? Cork is made up of dead cell or living cell?
Dead cells.
Yeah, right. Cork is made up of dead cells. So who observed living cells for the first time?
Leeuwenhoek.
Right. So living cells were observed for the first time by another scientist named Leeuwenhoek. So he
Pondwater.
also, yeah, Pondwater. He also used his own microscope. This is his microscope. It looks very similar to a magnifying glass. He used this microscope. He used a sample of pond water. Yeah, he used a sample of pond water. Some textbooks say that he collected some samples from his this substances stuck onto his teeth. Okay, So he collected some sample from his teeth, but the actual one, according to your textbook, is pond water. So one important thing for NEET is that you have to refer NCERT for everything, even if the answer is right or wrong. Even if the information given in NCERT is wrong, you have to stick to NCERT no matter what. So since NCERT says pond water, we'll discuss that only. So he took a sample of pond water, he observed it under his microscope. He saw some things which are moving, and these things were actually bacterial cells. He made some diagrams of these, and this is how the first living cells were discovered. So the first cell was discovered by Robert Hooke, but that was a dead cell. But the first living cell was discovered by Antony van Leeuwenhoek using pond water. But he was not knowing at that time these things were actually bacteria. There were some sperm cells also in the sample. There were some red blood cells also in the sample. Third one, what you see right now on the screen, this is a compound microscope. All of you might have used a microscope in your practicals in your lab. So this is a compound microscope which has a magnification of 2000. Compound microscope is a type of light microscope. So light microscope uses light as a source of illumination. Now, what is the other type of microscope other than light microscope? Any other type of microscope? What is the second category of microscopes other than light microscopes? So light microscope, it uses light as a source of illumination. Another category of microscope that you see right now on the screen. Any idea what is the name of this microscope?
Electron microscope.
Yeah, this is electron microscope. So the difference between light and electron microscope is that instead of using light as a source of illumination, this microscope will use electron beams. So a beam of electron will be used, and this will be bent using magnets so that it can fall onto the specimen. And using this, you can observe the internal structure of cells. So if you want to study the details of a cell, like which cell organelle is found, or the structure of cell organelles like mitochondria or nucleus, then you have to use electron microscope. And you can see here the magnification is so much high compared to compound microscope. In a compound microscope, the magnification is only 2000 times, but here it is 200 times magnified. So the image size is comparatively more and clear in case of electron microscope. So if you want to study the structure of cells and cell organelles, then you have to use electron microscopes. And these are very expensive microscopes. They're very large in size also. Now the reason why we use compound microscope in our lab or schools is because this is cheap and also easy to handle. Now, so right now you're seeing a scientist on the screen. The scientist is Robert Brown. Can someone tell me what was the contribution of Robert Brown in the field of cell biology?
He discovered cell wall.
He discovered
Cell
cell
wall.
wall. Okay. Any other answers? Sanika, Kedar, sorry, Anirudh, Madhura. What do you think was the contribution of Robert Brown in the field of cell biology?
Outer layer of trees, that is
Outer
epidermis.
layer of trees, epidermis. Okay. Actually, he discovered nucleus for the first time. Okay. So Robert Brown discovered nucleus in the cells of orchid root. He collected some orchid roots, and the outer layer called epidermis was observed, and he found some structures in that, and these were later found to be nucleus. So nucleus was first discovered by Robert Brown in 1831. So you should not get confused between Robert Hooke and Robert Brown. Robert Hooke coined the term cell. Robert Brown discovered nucleus in the cells of orchid root. So you should also remember these names of the plant or the sample, because that could be also asked in the NEET exam. Which sample or which plant was used by Robert Hooke for studying or discovering nucleus? So orchid epidermis was used. Next one. So this person, this scientist, his name is J.E. Perkinje or Perkinje. What was his contribution? You have studied in 9th standard.
Discovery of cytoplasm.
Discovery of cytoplasm, very close, but not the right answer. It's not cytoplasm, but something similar to that. Cytoplasm is actually a part of this thing. What is it?
Cell.
Cell membrane.
Cell membrane? No. Have you heard about something called protoplasm?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the term protoplasm was coined by J. Perkins. And protoplasm is something which students usually get confused. You might assume that protoplasm and cytoplasm are exactly the same thing, but it is not the case. I'll just draw a diagram to show what is the difference. So let's assume this is a cell. And this is the nucleus. Let's show the cytoplasm. I'm just coloring it with yellow. This yellow portion is cytoplasm. Let's label the parts first. Oh, something happened. Okay, give me 1 second. This is the nucleus and okay. So this is cell membrane or plasma membrane. This round thing in the center is nucleus. And this white colored region inside is cytoplasm. So this part, this living part, that is cytoplasm and nucleus together, this much is referred to as protoplasm. So cytoplasm is actually a part of protoplasm. Cytoplasm is a fluid part of the cell, the jelly-like substance which contains all the cell organelles. That is referred to as cytoplasm. And then we have nucleus in the cell. So this living part of the cell, the total living substance of a cell is referred to as protoplasm. Or you can say whatever comes inside the cell membrane could be called as protoplasm, which includes cytoplasm, all the cell organelles, and the nucleus. So cytoplasm and protoplasm, they are not the same thing. Cytoplasm is a part of protoplasm. Protoplasm, you could define it as, or you could write it as cytoplasm plus nucleus plus all the cell organelles equal to protoplasm. And so this is the total living substance of a cell. And this protoplasm, it is bounded by the cell membrane. So whatever comes inside the cell membrane could be referred to as protoplasm. So this term protoplasm was first used by a scientist named J.E. Perkinje in 1839. So in this chapter, you have to remember all these dates. When did Robert Hooke discover the cells for the first time? 1665. When did J. Perkinje coin the term protoplasm? 1839. Next one is another scientist. This you may not have studied. This might be new to you. Another scientist named Hammerling. So Hammerling, what he did was he used an algae. This algae is called Acetabularia. You can see the algae on the screen. There are two types of algae here. Both are Acetabularia, but the species name you can see here, it is different. First one is Acetabularia mediterranea. Second one is Acetabularia crenulata. They're slightly different from each other, but they are the same type of organism. So he used an algae called Acetabularia. He did some grafting experiment. I'm assuming you guys know what is grafting. You've studied last year in reproduction chapter. Can you tell me what is grafting? What happens in grafting?
Parts of plants are used to reproduce.
Okay. So we cut a shoot from one plant. We cut root from one plant. So the shoot system from one plant is joined to the root system of another plant. Like you can get two different varieties of mango within the same plant if you do this. So something similar to that is done here, grafting process. So what you can see on the screen here, he kind of removed the head or the cap or the umbrella shaped structure from the first species. The foot portion was obtained, and similarly, he removed the foot portion from the other one. So he joined these two. You can see here, the green portion was joined to the yellow portion, and nucleus is found only in the foot part. You can see here, this part is nucleus. There's a small dot. It's not very clear. There's a small dot at the foot, that is nucleus. So nucleus is found in the foot of this organism. So he found out that when he joined foot from this yellow plant with the upper portion from the green plant, and he allowed it to grow, it is supposed to produce green plant on the top. But he found out that it did not produce green plant. Instead, it produced yellow plant. That means this foot contains something that is responsible for passing on information to the progeny, or this foot contains something that is responsible for reproduction in this case, or it carries the information. So this foot actually contains nucleus. So the type or the color of the organism that grows, the species that grows, that is completely based on nucleus. It is completely based on the foot or the base. There is no role for this cap here. Everything is based on the foot. So this experiment was carried out by Hammerling, and he found out that nucleus is a storehouse of hereditary material. It contains all the information that will be passed on from parents to offspring. So you've studied about heredity and inheritance. That is because of nucleus. So this property or function of nucleus was discovered by Hammerling. So the organism he used for the experiment is called Acetabularia, which is an algae. He used two species of Acetabularia. One is called Acetabularia mediterranea, and the other one is called Acetabularia granulata. Next one, cell theory. So cell theory is something you have already studied in smaller classes. So cell theory was proposed first by two scientists, Schwann and Schleiden. Schwann and Schleiden. So they proposed that all the living organisms are made up of cells, and cell is the basic or the smallest unit of life. Whether you take a plant or an animal, everything is made up of cells. And this was proposed in 1839. Schwann was a zoologist and Schleiden was a botanist. But later, after a few years, in 1855, another scientist named Rudolf Virchow, he added one more point. He modified the cell theory. He stated that all cells come from pre-existing cells, or you can say new cells arise from old cells, or daughter cells come from mother cells. And this statement is, he gave the statement as omnis cellula e cellula, which is a Latin statement, which means new cells arise from pre-existing cells. So cell theory has three main points. Cell is the basic unit of life, or it is the smallest unit of life. All living organisms are made up of cells. And Rudolf Virchow modified this theory, and he said that all cells come from pre-existing cells. Omnis cellula e cellula. So this was asked in 2019 NEET exam. Omnis cellula e cellula was given by which scientist? So the correct answer for this is Rudolf Virchow or Virchow. So let's do a quick summary of what we have discussed till now, all the important scientists and their discoveries. So let's start with the first one. So what was the contribution of Rudolf Virchow?
He modified the cell theory and
Yes,
stated that the cells come from the pre-existing cell or old
right.
cell.
Yeah. So all cells come from pre-existing cells, omnicellular, acellular. This was given by Rudolf Virchow. So can someone tell me what was the contribution of Anton van Leeuwenhoek in the field of cell biology?
He observed the first living cell.
Yes. He observed the first living cell using a sample of pond water. So Kedar, what was the contribution of Robert Hooke?
Robert Hooke coined the term cell for the first time.
Okay. What did he use for his experiment?
For his so he used bark of a tree, which is made. He used cork of a tree, which is made from bark.
Okay. He used cork of a tree, which is actually a part of the bark of the tree. He used an oak tree and he observed some honeycomb-like structures.
Structure.
Then what was the contribution of Robert Brown? Anyone else? What was the contribution of Robert Brown?
So he discovered nucleus.
Nucleus.
Yeah, he discovered nucleus. He was observing and studying the root epidermis of orchid. What was the contribution of Hammerling? Contribution of Hammerling.
He stated that nucleus consists the heredity material.
Right. So he suggested or proposed that nucleus is responsible for transmission of characters. It carries the hereditary material or the genetic information. So right now, what you see on the screen is a summary, a table which summarizes everything we have discussed till now. Robert Hooke coined the term cell. Anton van Leeuwenhoek, he first saw and described a living cell. He collected some pond water. Robert Brown discovered the nucleus in orchid. J. Purkinje, he coined the term protoplasm. Protoplasm equal to cytoplasm plus nucleus. So the living part of the cell, the living substance of the cell is called protoplasm. Hammerling, using an algae called Acetabularia, suggested that nucleus is responsible for heredity or inheritance. Schwann and Schleiden, they formulated the cell theory first in 1839, but in 1855, Rudolf Virchow, he added one more point to the theory. He modified the theory. He said that all living cells arise from pre-existing cells, omnis cellula, acellular. Next, we'll discuss about the size of the cells. So whenever you're studying microbiology or cell biology, the unit that we use for measurement is micrometer, and we use a Greek letter to represent this. What is the name of this Greek letter? You could call it as micron, or it is also known as mu, mu. Okay, so this is micron or micrometer. 1 micrometer is equal to 10 to the power minus 6 meters. It is very, very small. Or you could write it as 10 to the power minus 3 millimeters. Now, before moving on to the other details, tell me which is the longest cell in our body, human body. Longest
Nerve cell.
cell. Yeah,
Nerve
nerve cell, right. Nerve cell or neuron is the, yeah, right, Anirudh.
Nerve cell.
Yeah. Nerve cell is the longest cell in our body. Question number 2, which is the largest living cell in the world? Largest living cell in the world.
Is it egg?
Yeah, that is right. But which egg?
Chicken egg?
No, bigger than that. Anyone else? Which is the largest egg?
Ostrich.
Right. Ostrich egg is the largest living cell. Question number 3. Which is the smallest cell in the human body? Smallest cell in the human body. I'll give a clue. It carries oxygen.
Hemoglobin has oxygen.
Where is hemoglobin from?
Hemoglobin.
Red blood
RBC,
cells.
WBC.
Yes.
Red blood cells.
Correct answer is red blood cell. Okay, so
blood
red
cell,
blood
yeah.
cells contain the pigment called hemoglobin. So RBCs are the smallest cells of our body. Last question, which is the smallest cell in the entire world? Smallest living cell. Which is the smallest living cell? Any idea? Which is smallest living cell? The smallest living cell is a bacteria, and this bacteria is called mycoplasma. So mycoplasma is the smallest living cell. This is a type of bacteria. So mycoplasma is the smallest living cell. Mycoplasma is also referred to as PPLO, pleuro pneumonia like organism. So mycoplasma is a type of bacteria which is the smallest living cell. It has a size of around 0.3 micrometers. Now, if you consider smallest cell in our body, it is RBC, erythrocytes or red blood cells, 7 micrometers. The longest cells are nerve cells or neurons, and the largest single living cell is ostrich. Now, I have a question for you. So, if I say mycoplasma is the smallest living cell, what about viruses? Are viruses smaller than bacteria or larger than bacteria?
Maybe larger than bacteria.
Okay,
Smallish.
smaller. Anirudh?
Smallest.
Madhura, what do you think?
Big.
So I think smaller.
Smaller, okay. Yeah, so viruses are actually smaller than bacteria. Then why is the answer not virus? Why is it mycoplasma? Viruses are of course smaller than mycoplasma. Then why is
Viruses are not made of cells. Maybe because of that.
Viruses are not living when they are outside the body.
okay? Both of you are right. So you cannot consider viruses as cells. Also, viruses are neither living nor non-living. So we cannot classify viruses as a living substance or a non-living substance. So when it is outside the body, it will be in the form of some powder particles or crystals. For example, you have been reading recently all about coronavirus. It can exist on the surface of materials for a few days. Okay. But when this powder or crystal enters our body, this becomes active, it becomes living. So viruses can live only inside the body of a host cell. This host could be a plant, it could be an animal, it could be any other organism. So since viruses are not living and since viruses are not cells, they don't have nucleus, they don't have cytoplasm, no cell organelles, no cell membrane, nothing. So since they are not cells, the answer cannot be virus, but they are smaller than bacteria. So right now you might see a cell on the screen. So what you have to do is I'll show you some parts like A, B, C, D. You have to tell me the answers in the chat box. Okay. I think you can send it to me privately in the chat box. So first one, identify A, only in the chat box. Okay, I've got two answers from Madhura, Kedar, Sanika, Anirudh and Siddharth. Okay, all of your answers are right. This is nucleus. Question number 2. Yes, Siddharth also right. Question number 2. Identify the structure known as B. What is B? Okay, I got two answers from Kedar and Madhura. What about the other three? Sanika, okay. Then Anirudh and Siddharth. If you don't know the answer, that is okay, but you can take a guess. Just write something. Whatever you think this organelle is, just let me know in the chat box. So Kedar has told me this is Golgi complex. Madhura is saying, I guess it is mitochondrion. Sanika is saying smooth endoplasmic reticulum. So I got three different answers. So let's see what is the correct answer. This correct answer is smooth endoplasmic reticulum. It might also look like Golgi complex, but yeah, it's actually smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Moving on to question number 3. Identify the structure labeled C. Remember that this is an animal cell, not a plant cell. This is an animal cell. So identify the structure C. We got three answers, Siddharth, Siddharth, Madhura, Kedar, Sanika. What about you, Anirudh? What do you think is C? Okay, all of your answers are wrong. 3 of you have told cell wall. 1 of you is saying ribosome. Yeah, the correct answer is cell membrane. So this is an animal cell, so the outermost covering of the animal cell should be cell membrane. Moving on to the fourth one. What is D? So D is actually the yellow colored region. This straw colored region is D. This portion. What is this yellow colored portion? Okay, I got 4 answers. Madhura, what's your answer? Okay, all right. So I got 2 correct answers. The correct answer is cytoplasm. So cytoplasm is a jelly-like substance in which all the cell organelles are kept. Moving on to question number 5. What is this one? This orange colored structure, E. What is this orange colored structure? Okay, I got 3 answers. So some of you have written Golgi complex. Some of you have written rough endoplasmic reticulum. The correct answer is rough endoplasmic reticulum. Question number 6. Identify F. What is the structure labeled F? Okay, 3 correct answers. Yeah, all of you got it right. This is mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell. Moving on to question number 7. What is G? So G, I'll draw the correct structure. In this figure, it is not drawn properly. I'll draw it correctly. It should look somewhat like this. This is G. Okay, 2 correct answers, 3 correct answers, 4 correct answers. Yeah, all of you got it right. This is Golgi complex. So Golgi complex will help in packaging of materials, modification, packaging. Moving on to question number 8. What is H? So H you can find almost everywhere in the structure. These are dot-like structures. You can find it also on rough endoplasmic reticulum. So what is this H? These dots. There are dots here and there in the cell. What does it represent? Okay, 2 correct answers, 4 correct answers, 5 correct answers. Okay, these are ribosomes. So ribosomes are small particle-like structures. They are very small cell organelles. They help in protein synthesis. Next one, what is I? What is I? I'll give a clue. This stores substances. It helps in storage of substances. Plant cells usually have one very large structure like this. Okay, so some of you are saying lysosomes. It actually looks like a lysosome, but this should be vacuole. Vacuoles store substances. Last one, J. Identify J. Again, I'll give a clue. These are suicide bags. Suicide bags of the cell. Suicide bags of the cell. Okay, 3 correct answers. Lysosomes are called suicide bags of the cell. One more question. You have to tell me the alphabet for this question. In which of these structures labeled from A to J will you find the genetic material or DNA?
A.
Just let me know in the chat.
A. Nucleus.
Okay, nucleus. Yeah. So you'll find DNA inside the nucleus. Also, let me know in the chat, okay? Only in the chat. Any other cell organelle which contains DNA. Only in the chat. Any other cell organelle which contains DNA. You just send me the letter. Even if your answer is wrong, that is all right. Just let me know some answer. Any other cell organelle which contains DNA. Siddharth, you're right. What about others? I got only 2 answers till now. Kedar, what is your answer? Sanika, please let me know in the chat. Anirudh. Any other cell organelle which contains DNA. Okay. So Siddharth, your answer is right. Mitochondria is the answer. Mitochondria also has its own DNA. Yeah, Madhura also, you're right. Mitochondria has its own DNA. You might have studied this last year. Mitochondria and plastids, they have their own DNA and ribosomes. So we'll do one more activity and we'll wind up today's class because it's first class. So what we are going to do is a cell city analogy. We'll be comparing different parts of a city to different parts of a cell based on the function. So you have to find out or relate cell parts to city parts by the way both of them functions. I'll give you some key terms. These are some of the key terms. I'll ask you one by one, and you should let me know in the chat box what is the correct answer. Okay, so we'll start with an easy one. Power plant, first one. Only in the chat box, give me the answer in the chat box. Which part of a cell can be considered as a power plant? Yeah, I got 2 correct answers. What about others? Three answers, 4 answers, one more. Okay, so the correct answer is mitochondria. Mitochondria is called powerhouse of the cell. Next one, question number 2. There are 2 possible answers for this question. City border. Which part of a cell is similar to city border? Which part of a cell is similar to city border? Sanika, right now we are doing question number 2. Which part of a cell can be considered as city border? Yeah, Kedar, you're right. Madhura and Anirudh, you are also right. I'm waiting for Siddharth and Sanika. Yeah, there are 2 possible answers. If you're considering a plant cell, then cell wall. If you consider animal cell, then cell membrane. Right. All of you got it right. Third one, this is only for a plant cell, food factory. Which part of a plant cell can be considered as food factory? Siddharth, you have to write a cell organelle. What you've written is a tissue. The question is, which cell organelle can be considered as food factory? It's okay if you don't know. So I've got 3 answers. Anirudh, I'm waiting for you. If you don't know the answer, just write don't know. This is a private chat. No one will see your answers, okay? Okay. So the correct answer for this is chloroplast or plastids. Chloroplast contains chlorophyll. It helps in photosynthesis. That is production or synthesis of food. Question number 4, town hall. So town hall could be considered as a corporation office or a parliament house. Town hall. Siddharth, you have to write cell part. What you have written is an organ. 2 correct answers. Anirudh and Madhura, you got it right. Nucleus is the answer. The town hall or the municipal corporation office will control all the activities of the city. Because it controls all the activities of the city, the correct answer should be nucleus. Nucleus is the brain of the cell. 5th one, storehouse, where everything is stored. Unwanted substances, wanted substances, everything is stored. Which cell organelle? Okay, 2 correct answers, 3 correct answers. The correct answer is vacuole. Vacuoles are structures in which all the substances are stored. Sixth one, roads and train, or you could call it as transportation system. I'll give a clue again. This part of the cell will help in transporting substances from the nucleus to the outside. Whatever nucleus produces, it will be transported by this cell part. Also, one more clue, this is usually attached to the nucleus. Two of you got it right. The correct answer is ER, or endoplasmic reticulum. So endoplasmic reticulum, it acts like a transport channel. It is connected to the nucleus. Seventh one, meat factory. So remember that meat is a protein. Meat factory. Okay, two correct answers. Three answers. Okay. So the answer for this question is ribosome. So ribosomes are the protein factories of a cell. They synthesize proteins for the cell. Question number 8. This is easy. All of you should get it right. Land or water? Or the part of the cell in which all the cell organelles are kept. Yeah, one right answer. Land or water? Two correct answers. 3, 4. Yeah, all of you got it right. This is cytoplasm. So all the cell organelles are kept in cytoplasm. Question number 8. Recycling plant. I'll just explain what this refers to. So recycling plant could be considered as a part where all the damaged items are kind of either destroyed or recycled or made into something else. So Anirudh, you have given the correct answer. Two correct answers, which is the recycling plant, similar to a recycling plant, where damaged substances are. Okay, correct answer is lysosome. So lysosomes, they are called suicide bags of the cell. When a cell is damaged or any cell organelle is not functioning properly, lysosome will fuse with it. Lysosome has strong digestive enzymes in it. It will kind of destroy the cell or kill that particular cell organelle. Last one is also easy. A post office or a courier facility where materials are packaged, modified, and transported. Packaging, modification, and transportation. Okay, one correct answer. Siddharth, also you got it right. Waiting for other guys. 3 answers. 4. Anirudh. Okay. Correct answer is Golgi complex.